Busy night last night if you did miss it in the NFL, as former Bills wide receiver Stephon Diggs is on his way back to the AFC East, this time to the rival New England Patriots on a reported 3-year, $69 million deal with $26 million of that guaranteed. Diggs, of course, did spend last year with the Houston Texans after being traded, and the quarterback market also appears to be beginning to wrap up as the Giants are signing Russell Wilson to a one-year deal worth up to $21 million. $10.5 million is guaranteed. Now to today's stories, more quarterback news as Miami Hurricanes quarterback Cam Ward reportedly having a private workout with the Cleveland Browns, who do hold the number 2 pick. Yesterday, it was reported he was having a private workout with the Tennessee Titans, who hold, of course, this year's number 1 pick. And then the NFL Competition Committee announced a number of proposed rule changes that will be up for a vote next Tuesday, April 1st, at the NFL owners' meetings. Those do include a number of kickoff rules, including the touchback being moved to the 35-yard line instead of the 30, and onside kicks happening at any time if a team is trailing. Again, these are proposals, among others, will be voted on next Tuesday. To the Sabres, they are off today. They got a win yesterday against Ottawa. That does mark head coach Lindy Ruff's 600th of his career. Sabres are next in action tomorrow at home against Pittsburgh, but around the rest of the NHL is a very light night, just 4 games. 2 at 7:30, the Devils are in Chicago versus the Blackhawks, and the Islanders host Vancouver. And then at 10 o'clock, the Oilers have the Stars in town, and the Bruins are out west against the Ducks. And a reminder, do join Mike Schopp and Sal Capaccio as they broadcast live from the Ride for Roswell kickoff event today at Roswell's campus. This is your chance to pick up your fundraising materials and mingle while enjoying some food and drinks. You can even stop by and see where all the fundraising goes with an exclusive tour of Roswell Park's research labs and facilities. Kickoff event starts in just about 2 hours at 5 p.m., and all are welcome. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Schopp and the Bulldog.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody?
Monday, Tuesday, hump day is halfway.
It's Mike Schopp.
Mike. What day is it, Mike?
And the Bulldog.
Hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on. I know you can hear me.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo!
On WGR
Hump day!
Sports Radio 550.
Hello, we're at Roswell today for the kickoff social event here for the Ride for Roswell, which is coming up on 30 years. Mike Schopp here with Sal Capaccio, maybe ironically. It's a tricky word for me, Sal, but Bulldog is the captain of the WGR team, yet he is not present. Because he's on holiday.
He's getting ready.
He's on holiday.
He's training.
Is he?
He might be in Puerto Rico
Can
training.
you imagine going to Puerto Rico and training? You know, you get how many weeks a year do you get? You're lucky enough to get a little bit of time. You go to a tropical location. You know, I'd have a very tough time getting off my butt, I think, if I were in Puerto Rico for a week.
Rocky went to Russia to do it. Right?
Well, Rocky's a very special. I mean, not everybody can be Rocky. But, yes, that beach run, is that in Russia?
No. That's all the
California.
cold. Yeah. Rocky 4, he went there. Rocky, 2 and 3. See, guy for Roswell tells us it's 3. He's on the beach.
3?
When he finally beats Apollo in the race.
With that song?
Carl Weathers, yes.
Survivor? I don't know my Rocky like maybe I should. You'd think
Sounds
I would because these are old movies. That's kind of my specialty, but I
was
Rocky
just watching today, believe it or not. I never have time in the afternoon really to kind of just relax, but I said I better just chill before I head over here. I got to do a show today with you. And I happened to be flipping through, and Roadhouse, the original, was on. Not the one that was just made
Roadhouse
a couple years ago, but the Patrick Swayze Roadhouse was on. It's a great classic movie. And I was watching it, and Yana, my wife, she comes in, and she says, "What are you watching?" I said, "Roadhouse." She said, "I don't think I've ever seen it." I said, "Are you kidding me? We have to watch Roadhouse now together."
I definitely have never seen it.
You've never seen Roadhouse?
No.
Come on.
No, I mean, I'm trying not to laugh. No, I've never seen Roadhouse. I mean, I've heard of it, but I've never seen you could have called me. I could have come over and watched Roadhouse with you and your wife.
I'm looking at the chat, the bullpen, as they call it on Jeremy and Joe. Hey, everybody, how are you? Good to see you. Mike's never watched Roadhouse.
No. I mean, I'm still young. Maybe tonight. It'll happen. Sal, it's been too long since you and I have settled into a show together. I'm excited about it. We have Chris Trapasso coming over here to Roswell today, and he'll be with us for an hour from 4 to 5 talking about the draft. As eager as I am to get into schedule stuff with you, because I always like that's my instinct and my love. But the draft, I mean, didn't Russell Wilson signing with the Giants maybe kind of really clarify the top of this draft? Yep. Like, they're not in the quarterback market now, are they, with Wilson and Jameis Winston?
I don't think so. I think this tells me two things. When the Giants go out and sign Russell Wilson, to me it's two things. Number one, and it could be either order. Number one, it tells me they are pretty convinced they're not getting Aaron Rodgers or they don't want Aaron Rodgers. It's one or the other. Mm-hmm. Either they think Rodgers is going to Pittsburgh or they think it's taking too long or they just don't want him. We need to move on here. Number two is I don't think they love anybody enough in the draft. Even if they felt they love somebody enough, maybe they think they're not going to get one of the top two, Ward or Sanders, because they could go before them. But I think this tells me both these things, Mike, which is they don't love somebody enough and they're not going to get Rodgers. And I've maintained all along, especially listening at the Combine to them talk, specifically Joe Shane, I should say, and then talking to New York media, I felt all along they were not going to start a rookie this year anyway because their jobs are on the line. They can't do that. So it had to be, to me, Rodgers or Wilson or another veteran to start, and then maybe you draft a rookie to develop, and I think that's even off the table now.
Yeah. I was thinking yesterday and talking yesterday about Winston there. Like, what an funny, almost odd choice for a must-win season. I mean, they're in tough. Dable is in tough already. Mm-hmm. Everybody in the division's probably good. Super Bowl champ. Washington had a great season. Dallas is probably better. So it's going to be a big, tall order for the Giants. But imagine, like, having whatever the context, you have to win this year, and your quarterback is Jameis Winston. Like, that is a ride. You are signing up, right, for Roswell. You are signing up for a ride if you have Jameis Winston. Now, I mean, Wilson is kind of like the opposite of Rodgers was. Wilson is more the opposite of Winston. I mean, it's not like he will never take a chance, but I think, it's more going to be more conservative.
Much higher floor.
Yeah.
Maybe lower ceiling.
Yeah, I would think.
Right?
I think so. Which is probably not the bet I'd want to make either. I don't know. Like, with the Giants, there was never really a good option, right? I mean, even picking third. Maybe it's one or the other of your scenarios, or it's both, where they might have wanted Sanders, right, in the draft, but maybe they think that that's not something they can pull off. I kind of doubt that. But
They'd really right. They could jump one spot if they felt Cleveland really was going to take one of these guys. Because I think at this point people are. If it takes Sanders, I should say. I think most people think that number one will be Cam Ward.
I do.
Yep. And then if the Giants really felt strongly about Sanders, but man, the Browns are going to take him. That's maybe how you get here. But I think that's a leap because the Browns even are maybe not going to take Sanders. And if they're not necessarily entrenched on that, you could probably flip one spot with them to give them something in return.
Yeah, they'd have to want to do it.
Yeah,
Cleveland, right? They might not even want to entertain. That's the Trubisky situation, right? Trading from 3 to 2. That's what the Bears did with Solomon Thomas from 3 to 2. I don't know who was San Francisco's quarterback at the time. I guess it doesn't matter.
Garoppolo?
Was it even back then?
I don't even.
17? Maybe.
Ooh, maybe not.
16 season, maybe it was.
But
Kaepernick.
Look,
No, it wasn't Kaepernick anymore.
I think, though, the overall point here is the Giants, their GM, Joe Shane, their head coach, Brian Dable, their jobs are on the line. They know that. We know that. They have to win, and I don't think they're willing to bet their season and bank their season on a rookie.
Yep.
But they're also probably not willing to bank it on Jameis Winston and his variance, as you just pointed out a little while ago. My buddy, TJ Reeves, the sideline reporter for the Buccaneers, texted me last night. He said, how will we remember the Jameis Winston era in New York? Now, he's still on the team, and my response was, well, he's already thrown a couple picks for them already. Because, I mean, that's what you get with him. You know that. You could also get a 500-yard passing game like he had last year.
I wonder, did they, already have an offer in to Wilson at the time of signing Winston? It's only a few days apart. Why would you need Winston now? Wilson doesn't leave the field. He never gets hurt. I mean, he can, but it's not. He had the one year where Geno went in, but really, like, that's one of the most durable quarterbacks in the league. If you make that bet, we don't need Jameis Winston as a backup. That's weird. What they should do now, it's the Giants, right? Like ideally you sign Wilson, which they maybe only do because Rodgers wasn't interested. But you sign Wilson, you don't need Winston at all. You'd want. I mean, it really shouldn't work the way this appears to be working, where the middle managers are running the organization here and not the owner. But, okay, so I've got Russell Wilson for this year. Maybe I can not be terrible. And then I have, Jalen Milroe or somebody like that. That's what I would do. I think Wilson with a kid works. It works as well as the Giants were ever going to be able to do. Better than this. They're not going to go trade Jameis Winston now, but they probably should want to because they don't need him.
So I would give you a reason why I think they would do this and what you said, why they would have Winston and Wilson. I'll go exactly back to what Joe Shane said at the Combine. As of just a couple weeks ago, Mike, they had one quarterback on their roster. His name is Tommy DeVito.
Yeah.
That's it. Tommy DeVito's the only quarterback on their roster. So what kind of faith do they have in him? Yeah, he's looked pretty good for a hot minute for a quarter or two, right? But obviously they don't have a lot of faith in him having to play games. So you sign Winston with thinking, okay, we need somebody here who can at least stabilize or help us try to score some points because they're so bad at it. But we need to do better. They finally get Wilson. I think this comes down to if Russell Wilson, at his age, last year had an injury, if he's going to miss some games, we can't bank our season on a rookie that we draft because we have to try and win. I think that's what this basically comes down to. They needed a veteran backup. What I want to know is, did Jameis Winston sign there thinking he is QB1?
He didn't get the money that you would think you would get if you were going to be the starter. But if he thought they were going to draft somebody, yeah, it's just the timing is very strange. Bad teams kind of tend to stay bad. 16 Niners was Kaepernick. Under Chip Kelly, and then they were done with both after that season. And then 17 is Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer, and C.J. Beathard. And, we left that open-ended, but Hoyer, Sal, right? So he signs in San Francisco, and the Bills wanted him. Because they were moving on from Taylor, and it was Hoyer and Mike Glennon that they were, thought to be in on, and they got neither, and ended up Taylor didn't get the money he thought he was going to get and came back.
It's funny you say that to me. About 2 weeks ago, I was on, I think, Sirius XM with Brian Hoyer, he's co-hosting a show now.
The natural progression.
Right, of course, right? And I thought to myself what you just said. Boy, wasn't there a time where the Bills were going to sign him? And I wanted to say something. I didn't because I didn't want to look like an idiot.
Yeah.
Asking him that while I was on the show with him.
I respect that.
Right? So, but I did ask him, I did talk to him about the new stadium coming, and, hey, Brian, you've played in Buffalo, and there's this new stadium. We talked about it. He was talking about playing in Buffalo and what it was like and the environment, and also talking about the pressure of, being in the New England Patriots organization when they were, winning games and so successful. Anyway, I thought about that thinking, man, wasn't he in the mix for the Bills to sign at one point?
I thought they wanted
him. I never asked him that.
I thought they wanted him.
Next time out, I'm going to ask him now.
All right, yeah, if there is a next time.
If there is a next time.
Hoyer and Glennon were the two guys, and I don't remember the chronology of it, but Taylor was supposed to be gone. McDermott comes in, and so they'll make that change, and they don't. And then they have that kind of miraculous playoff drought-ending season. All right, well, Ward at 1. I'm gullible. I say it all the time when it comes to draft stuff. Bulldogs, everything's a smokescreen. Is it a smokescreen that Tennessee sent everybody to the pro day, and then the next day, which was yesterday, had the private workout and everything for Cam Ward? It makes sense, and now it sort of feels like it's an onslaught from the Titans. But somebody else could say, well, that's the genius of it to make it look like. If we were the Tennessee Titans, wouldn't you just draft him?
Yeah, so I think there's two parts to this. Number one, they should draft him. I think will they draft him? Yes, I think they will and should they? Probably. They need a quarterback. It feels to me like their coach doesn't even like their current quarterback that they drafted a couple years ago. He's always saying something about him. It seems like yelling at him on the sidelines or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Will Levis. They moved on from him, apparently. And I would say when it comes to smoke screens, yes, they happen. I don't think they're quite as prevalent with the number one pick. What's the reason? Who cares? You have the number one pick. You don't need to create a smoke screen.
Right.
Unless you're really trying to move the pick and trade it. I guess you could say that. But to me, why would you put all these people out at the pro day and have workouts? You want to be sure. You have the number one pick. Let's be sure on who we're taking here.
Right. They could do all this and then hate him.
Right. They could.
we don't know if they actually like him for these workouts or anything.
But I don't think you're doing it intentionally to fool anybody.
Yeah.
I think you're doing it to make sure you are picking the right guy.
It's a lot of money, dude. A lot of time and effort goes into this if it's just for show.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on him?
I like Cam Ward. I think he is the best quarterback in this draft. I don't think he's ready-made to step in and, become a really good quarterback right away. Who knows? Jaden Daniels was Rookie of the Year and was outstanding. He surpassed my expectations for what he would do. So, yeah, I would never count anybody out because we've seen it happen. Mm-hmm. But that organization where they are, what his game is, I don't think it screams doing what Jaden Daniels did last year. But I think, given the right situation and development, I think Cam Ward can be a good quarterback in this league. I don't know what his ceiling is, but I like his floor. I think he'll be able to step on the field and win some games, help a team. You got to develop the right way. You got to surround him the right way. If there's one thing I think that I've really learned, I've said this many times, probably with you too, really watching McDermott and Bean and Josh Allen after what we went through in Buffalo, and I've covered 4 head coaches as the beat reporter and sideline guy. I just think it really finally showed to me how important development is and surrounding with the right people. And that's why you don't see teams like the Jets be able to do it correctly. And multiple guys, Geno Smith and Sam Darnold, move on and have success. Whereas in Buffalo, in Baltimore, they've had mostly continuity. Their head coach, their organization, they're stable, and they've done it the right way. And look where these guys are now.
That's always a great discussion, how that happens. Because would you not agree, in terms of the Bills, we didn't know the Bills were going to be this until they were this.
Of course.
Like, Allen gets picked, and it's like, good luck, kid. Yeah. You're going to however many years without the playoffs until the year after, before he was picked. I mean, they'd just broken the drought, but, there was a lot of luck in that. Still, is that exactly where you'd want to go to be, like, developed and have all this stability? None of those words were really applicable to the Bills at that time. But, to McDermott's credit, to the organization's credit, they established that, plus having Allen, and, you could say that this was something that they observed in him, but having Allen do his part in that, and then just also, like, the natural talent and everything else that comes to the surface, and it's a home run. I mean, it's a grand slam. Whatever is bigger than a grand slam, it's that. At the time, were the Bills, like, the opposite. They were closer to the opposite of this. And, the Ravens weren't, and the Chiefs with Reed, right? Like, that was sort of like the Chiefs especially, right? That's a perfect landing spot for a quarterback. I don't know. Tennessee, you got to be careful on this because Tennessee has the recent history, the reputation, Vrabel, it's Derrick Henry. It's not a team, they trade A.J. Brown, right? Like, it's not a team where it's more like what the Bills used to be, I think. Like, good luck, kid. But that can change. Mm-hmm. That can change. Coach gets year 2, and he wants, the proverbial, his own stamp on the thing. Ward has the talent, has the gifts, and maybe it works.
Yeah,
Cleveland is the same thing, too.
Cleveland, they've been kind of wandering the wilderness looking for a quarterback as well. I'm trying to think of recent examples of, well, for a couple of years with a coach, it really didn't work out, and then all of a sudden they drafted a quarterback and it started to work out. And I'm sure there's some out there, but usually you don't maybe even get that much time if you don't have that guy. Because if the quarterback takes that long, maybe you're already out the door before that happens. But I do think this situation looks like the Tennessee Titans are heading towards Cam Ward. Now, if you don't do that, the other part of this is, what's the other options in the draft? Because if you don't take quarterback, let's just say Cam Ward's their number one guy on their quarterback board, overall quarterback. Okay, so you could either take him, because you need a quarterback, or do you go Abdul Carter? Do you go Travis Hunter? Right? This is a good draft, but I don't think there's a clear cut where you can't. There's no Myles Garrett here where you got to take that guy. Unless you just love the quarterback more than anything, you got to take this other guy. There's nobody like that in this draft.
Carter and Hunter are the two names. I mean,
right.
New England could go offensive line. They're good linemen, apparently. Will Campbell today is being talked about. There's a couple other ones. So they could do that. But I think Hunter especially, but then also Carter, are who make this draft interesting. Like they're the best things about this.
Yeah.
Because the quarterbacks are okay, they're fine. You know, Ward is fine. Sanders might even be fine. We got to get to eventually what the Browns could or should do at 2. But Hunter being basically 2 players is insane. And, like, how do you stack that up against quarterback value, right? If the guy is the best cornerback and the best wide receiver in college football, which he was, not only corner, best defensive player.
Yeah.
Bednarik. Best defensive player and best receiver in college football. We've never had that. We've never had Ohtani in football where it's like, all right, quarterback is everything. But here's 2 guys, and both are important positions, you know, if he ends up playing full-time both, which maybe that's a lot. Obviously, that's a lot to ask. Hunter is what makes it fun. Like, New England is, to me, well, Tennessee's close, but New England is like the least fun team in the NFL. All the teams, the Browns, it's a competition right up at the top of this draft for like the least fun football teams, organizations. Yet you have this gem of a prospect who is super fun. I'm not exactly jealous because the Bills are, so good. But to have that conversation every day, if you're the Browns or the Patriots, would you do, especially the Browns, because the Patriots might just sort of be decided for them. Would you rather have Hunter than Shedeur Sanders is really good?
It comes down to what you feel about Sanders, what you feel about the quarterback, because it's such an important position. If you're not completely in love with Sanders, I think you go Hunter. But, like, I'm looking at a mock draft right now, they have Carter. If you pair Carter with Myles Garrett, I mean, 2 incredible edge rushers, right? But I agree with you. I think Hunter's the best football player in this draft. I think he's incredible. I think you put him on any team in the NFL, he's going to be really good. The question is going to be where you play him, how much you play him there. Is he a full-time corner with some package plays at wide receiver? Do you do the thing that nobody's really ever done and play him both ways as much as possible, right? I mean, nobody's really ever done that. You say that Hunter and Carter are the 2 guys that are interesting. To me, it's Hunter and Sanders. I think Shedeur Sanders, the 2 Colorado kids, makes this draft incredibly interesting simply because of who his dad is and where he goes in that dynamic. Sure. Now, his dad refuted a quote that was put out there on social media a couple days ago that said apparently he was attributed to saying we want it to be New York or something. He wants to go to New York, whatever it is.
Yep.
And he said this is a lie. He said,
really?
Yeah, he said this is a lie. He quoted he posted under the Instagram post of this, said this is a lie. We trust God's hands wherever he goes or something like that. Something along those lines. So he's saying all the right things. But, Mike, if you're an organization and you draft Shedeur Sanders, I think you have to know that his dad comes with him in some capacity. And that's what makes this also super interesting. And I think the guy is very polarizing as a prospect. I actually think he has some good tools as a quarterback, and he might be a good NFL quarterback. He's accurate. He's a really good athlete. He's not a super great runner, but he's a good athlete. But I don't also see necessarily him blowing you out of the water with all the intent, all the traits and the skill set.
He's definitely interesting. Yeah,
Right.
I'm just sort of like putting him in a box as a quarterback, having the other guys who compare, could anybody be more valuable than a quarterback? Well, it depends how good the prospect is. And here's Hunter, and Carter in his own right, like he's Aaron Donald, right? So like you have a couple of possible alternatives that are maybe better. Sure, like Sanders is interesting. What it comes down to is, end of the day, you're nowhere without a quarterback, so you just do it and you hope. And you do everything you can to surround the player with support and weapons and everything like that. You just do it. The Giants, I think, just determined, whatever they think of Sanders, they determined, like, that's not going to be possible for us. Maybe round 2 is still interesting for some of these guys, too, like a Milroe or whatever. So you have that, but not going to happen. So the Browns, that's the one. Ward to the Titans. Giants have begged off signing the 2 vets.
Yep.
The Browns are the one where it's either Sanders because quarterback is everything and we're nowhere still forever at quarterback. We thought we had it and we don't. Or it's like, you know what? We don't love the kid. And the stuff you said about Dion maybe, it's Cleveland, right? Like they just take Travis Hunter or Carter and figure it out next time. Next year, even. They might end up doing that.
Okay, let's talk about that. What if they do that? Who's their quarterback this year? Kenny Pickett?
Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett is their starting quarterback this year if that happens.
I think yes. I think it's either Sanders or Pickett.
You're probably right about that.
You know? Yep. And if it's they get somebody in round 2, which they would do, or eventually, like day 2, then Pickett still starts. That'd be my bet.
I still wonder if Kirk Cousins is available at some point.
Maybe Cousins. That's right. That's possible.
They paid that money maybe to better facilitate a trade with a team because he's got money paid already.
Right.
You know what I mean? A team didn't have to pay it.
We are at Roswell Park. The Ride for Roswell, I suppose, officially, unofficially kicks off today. It's pretty official. I mean, this room is decked out.
We're in a big room here.
We are. This is the biggest room I've ever been in. It's the Gaylord Gary room here at the complex. So if you're doing a search or something to get to where we're located and where this event later, I think it starts at 5.
Can I show the room on my camera? I can. Look at this, everybody. Here you go. Hi. Say hi, everybody.
It's the biggest room I've ever seen. And there's a lot of balloons, and there's going to be food.
There you go.
803-0550 if you want to join us. Sal in for Bulldog today. I'm Mike Schopp here at Roswell Park. Chris Trapasso from 4 to 5. This is WGR.
We know you can't hear every moment.
And I think that's important. And he does it. He's willing to do it. And you can see here, that's closing speed, makeup speed, and all corners have to have that. He plays with a swagger, he plays with an attitude, and I think he'd be a nice addition to their team.
Veteran NFL analyst on One Bills Live today. Mike Schopp here at Roswell Park with Sal Capaccio. I can get you right through to Sal. 803-0550 is the number. The Ride for Roswell kickoff event today, starting at, I believe, 5 here in the Gaylord Gary conference room. Source tells me not a ballroom.
Not a ballroom.
I don't know ballroom specs. Do you have to be a certain square footage to qualify? I don't know. I don't know that much. I know sports. Some would beg to differ.
I think we could get up here and cha-cha and turn this into a ballroom, but not today. But because we're doing the Ride for Roswell, but there could be a ballroom.
It's one speaker away from becoming a ballroom.
Maybe that's it. Yes.
Pete Prisco talking about Kentucky cornerback Maxwell Hairston. Sal and I were talking during the break, and you were saying, like, I'm not all the way there on, like, the names of the guys yet in the Bills' range. This is one that, you know, you're going to hear a lot about, I think, Hairston. And corner, I'm hearing your voice tell me, like, remember, they still really don't have an obvious one anyway, starting cornerback. So is it Maxwell Hairston? Is it Amos, another one from Ole Miss? Those are, I think, the names. Not going to be Travis Hunter.
No, and I think when you look at a guy like Will Johnson of Michigan, way too high, obviously. If he starts to fall, is there someone – Brandon Beane has traded up, right? Will Johnson, Jedi Barron. Are these guys with Barron? I believe he's more of a slot guy. But a guy like Will Johnson, let's say, if he starts to fall a little bit, you just talked about Maxwell Hairston. Maybe he's available at 30. Does he make a move like he has 2 of the last 3 years? Kyer Elam, Dalton Kincaid. And actually, he moved last year, but the other way. Went down and ultimately drafted Keon Coleman. But we know that Brandon Beane is willing to trade up if there's a guy there that he likes. And I think that's the kind of position this year that maybe they would do it for.
You know, we should talk about that, too. I did some on this yesterday because I guess One Bills Live did why trade up, or not why, but what about it is why you would do it. It was sort of like slanted toward what are your reasons for wanting them to trade up if that's how you feel. And, I mean, I'm just militant about it. Never do it. Quarterback, maybe. Only exception. Never do it. You know, with respect to Beane, Elam and Kincaid were both moving up 2 spots and giving up a 4th-round pick to do it. Mm-hmm. You've had that chart where they only have made 3 4th-round picks since 2018.
It really is amazing, yeah.
So, I don't know, like, to me that's not good math. But, you know, it's not real life, but in fantasy, you know, you sort of, it gets close and you get excited about a player and you just don't want to risk it. I'm moving up 2 spots. Maybe there's some intel. It was Dallas with Kincaid that they thought maybe Dallas was going to take him. They jumped over Dallas to take Kincaid, and maybe that's right. Maybe they should just let that happen and draft Laporta or whoever. Like, I don't know. I'd rather have the 4th-round pick than move the 2. It's been both. James Cook was trading down twice in the 2nd round, and they got a 6th each time to do that. And I would guess, maybe you know this or different, that they wanted Cook, and they thought that was going to be attainable even by moving down twice.
That was the year that they lost out on J.D. McKissick, and they were looking for a back with that skill set. So I wouldn't doubt that they really liked James Cook for that. Now, granted, he wasn't as great of a receiver in his first couple of years, but you know he's obviously turned out into a good all-around back. But that was that year that happened, if you remember. If you remember back to the Kyer Elam year, Mike, one of the things that happened was the Chiefs traded up. Excuse me, the Chiefs traded up for Trent McDuffie.
McDuffie, right?
And I wonder. I mean, yes, it's all anecdotal, and it's all. I mean, you could do this, spin yourself in 100 different ways. But what if the Bills had traded up for McDuffie, and right, and instead of Kyer Elam? Because I think,
no, how dare you?
I really believe they really liked Trent McDuffie, and they wanted him. But the Chiefs traded up first. They got him. So now you get in a position where, well, we really need to take a corner here. Who's next on our board? You go up and get Elam. But if they trade up and get McDuffie, maybe it's a different conversation.
You know, I'm going to say something that I don't think anybody has ever said. And I'm glad you're sitting down because it's going to be controversial. I'm sick of the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I'm sick of the Chiefs. I mean, okay, so are we Charlie Brown and the football and they're Lucy or something like this? So that McDuffie point, that it's worthy. Oh, sure, whatever. It's good math. We'll trade out, and it's worthy. This year, I did this yesterday, looking at the work of Pro Football Network. Bills 30, Chiefs 31 in the first round, and their top need is defensive tackle. So get ready. Get your boots on. If you want Kenneth Grant or, Walter Nolan or one of these guys, and there's some thirst for defensive tackles, which there is. Philadelphia also at 32. Like, there's a handful of teams in that bottom, say, quarter of the first round that are like kind of, it makes sense. And the position is rich this year. You might have to figure out an end around on Kansas City again. I mean, that hasn't really worked out yet. It hasn't happened yet. But anyway, it's just to say that, like, the Chiefs are your competition.
Right.
Again, you pick in front of them, but that's for now.
Because they've already shown that they'll be willing to move up. And if they are interested in the same position, that could happen again. The Bills have 3 picks in the top 62. They have 2 second-rounders. I would be stunned, as I sit here today, if more than one went to the offensive side. I think it's either 3 defense, no offense, or 2 defense, 1 offense. And that's even then, I mean, you could make an argument it should be all 3 defense. I'm thinking back to what Brandon Bean said on Ryan Fitzpatrick's podcast last week with Andrew Whitworth as well. And he said, right out, as of right now, we're probably focused going to have more picks on defense. But in those first 3 picks, I think you're looking defense. It's defensive tackle and it's corner, I think, easily, with it two of the first 3 picks.
It's not saying much. I'd like to have a third. The third is kind of a fun leverage round where, you've got day 3 is more just like let's fill the roster together. But you still have some premium players, second round, third round, and then, you want to move around a little bit. A third would be nice. You can do it with 2 fourths or a fourth and a fifth. Maybe the Bills do something like that. There's been plenty of that, as you know, over the years, or by moving out of round 2.
Right. Would you rather them move down from round 2 to get in back to round 3?
Yes.
Or move up one of the – you have 2 fourths and 3 fifths.
I know. I want to use them all. I'm always down. You don't have to ask me. My answer is always down.
I get it, but they have 10 picks. Are you picking 10? I know more dart throws, right? No doubt, more dart throws.
Yes,
but it's also more guys that aren't going to make your roster probably that you're taking. That you might wind up just saying it was a kind of a wasted pick because somebody else can take them when you waive them.
I don't think that's a wasted pick. I wouldn't measure it by like how many make the team. We've had this conversation. The bad teams have say they have 10. Say New England has 10 picks. More of them are going to make it. Because they have more needs. Doesn't mean the players are better.
Agreed.
It just means like we have to rebuild, right? So, yeah, I'd rather just have the Bills have shown to have a propensity. Like they can identify the talent. I can coach this guy, even in the late rounds. They've had it at receiver. They've had it in Benford's case. Like they've had that. Just give me the more shots at it. And if that means 5 players don't make the roster, I don't think that's a loss.
What's funny to me is last year, I don't remember how many they had going into the draft last year, but they came out with 10.
Yeah.
They picked 10 guys last year. Now, it was a bit of a reset last year because they got rid of a bunch of guys, veterans on the roster. We know Micah Jordan, Tre'Davious White, those guys, Saran Neal, Mitch Morse. So maybe they're in a different position, but I remember thinking last year, if you would have said to me, over or under the Bills picking 9 guys, I would have said under. They're not going to pick 10 guys. They did. They picked 10 last year. So who knows? Maybe they do it again this year. But
I probably did ask you that.
Yeah, the roster is a little bit younger now, so I don't know if there's quite as much room to do that for some of these guys. But they do have 10 picks as of right now.
Well, how many made it? Coleman, Bishop, Carter. Several of them did make it. Your top guys are always going to make it. You're not going to cut them out of camp, right?
Top guys you're not going to. I'll give you here it is. Travis Clayton actually made the roster as the swing tackle.
Ray Davis.
I'm sorry, not Travis Clayton. Tylon Grable. Apologies. Tylon Grable made it as the swing tackle. Travis Clayton was the international pathways guy who went on injured reserve.
Jane Granger made the team.
They all here. Every one of them did except for Daquan Hardy did not.
Olafosio made the team.
Yep. Daquan Hardy did not, and Travis Clayton did not.
Solomon.
So 8.
Do we do this, or does Zach do this?
I can do it.
Let's talk to Glenn here. Hi, Glenn. Welcome.
Good afternoon, guys. I had an opportunity to watch the Combine completely and was really impressed with the wide receivers coming out. Given that I understand the need for defensive line help and cornerback, could you see a scenario where, again, they go back to their first selection being a wide receiver?
This is a really interesting and good question, Glenn, that Matt Bove and I have debated a lot on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. He is on the side of he thinks wide receiver is much more in play than I believe wide receiver is in play, Mike, with the first-round pick. And here's why. I understand, and I would say, Glenn, that no doubt if there's a really good wide receiver, it could help this offense. But I think about how they operate and what they think about, Mike, which is I don't know where he's playing right away, and even though they need still like a speed guy, let's say, where is he? He's the fifth guy if he gets drafted now. Maybe fourth at best. I just don't see them doing that.
I can't see them using a late first on a receiver.
I can't either.
I don't think it's the year for it either.
No.
I mean, there are a couple of guys who are tempting, but doesn't sound to me like there's that much difference between certain second or third round options. I've decided
Agreed.
who I like. Io Manor from Stanford. He's the one I like. So that might be round 2 at the earliest. I tend to doubt it. Everything about this, the history, the way the season ended up playing out, the draft class, the respective, everything points to defense. Thanks, Glenn. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog at Roswell Park. Rideforroswell.org for more. There'll be a lot of people in here, whether it's a ballroom or not, coming up in a couple of hours. We'll be back. Chris Trapasso for an hour. Glenn, other draft enthusiasts in our audience. Stay tuned for an hour with Chris, getting all through these prospects and what will happen in what's now a little bit less than a month. Back after this here on WGR. At Roswell Park today, the Ride for Roswell kickoff event is coming up later this afternoon. Many of you, a part of this event. Maybe we'll see some of you down here starting about 5 today. They are ready for you. Mike Schopp here with Sal Capaccio. Bulldog is off through Monday. Baseball, Sal.
Yes, tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yankees, Mets, opening day for everybody around the league, but yeah.
Jays are home to Baltimore.
Uh-huh.
Yankees have Milwaukee.
Yes, as you pointed out, which is amazing. Their first 3 series are against NL teams, and then a series against Detroit, and then another NL team, I noticed.
After that?
Yeah, I think it's 4 of their first 5, actually.
Okay. Get them in.
I guess so.
I mean, you play everybody home and away now. So it's nothing. It's just about the order, right? Like the baseball went to that, where everybody goes to every stadium, both leagues, every year. The Yankees' leadoff hitter is a catcher.
Yes, this is a really good discussion because I think it's fascinating, Mike, how baseball has really changed in this regard. But the Yankees are also unique this year, even with the change, that they may, it looks like, lead off a catcher, Austin Wells, because he's had a really good spring and he knows how to get on base. But it's been years since we saw the traditional fastest guy, leadoff guy, getting on base and stealing bases. Teams don't operate like that anymore. I mean, it's really just, hey, it's a lot. Obviously, analytics plays a big role. It's get on base, but it doesn't have to be your fastest guy. It's not the guy that's just going to steal a bunch of bases. It's not Ricky Henderson types all over the place. Even Brett Gardner's that the Yankees had, for several years. But you think about that. And then the other part that has really changed, the best hitter was always the number 3 hole when we were growing up, and now it's always the number 2 hole.
Always number 2. Right. And your worst hitter should bat 7th.
Right.
Your best hitter should bat 2nd. Your worst hitter should bat 7th.
And then because you want number 1 now hitting, who's not that traditional leadoff guy, to actually hit with 8 or 9, getting on base, and 7 could wind up ending and hitting because of the way the math flows.
Mm-hmm. The pitch clock was a big win, I think, for baseball. It didn't really sound great, but it just was. It worked. I think it did what maybe most people wanted, which is just to keep the games under control. Time-wise, they'd kind of gotten out of control. But what they did to bring back stolen bases is right there next. I mean,
I love it.
It's great.
Yep.
And so, I mean, in the last 20 years, everybody decided that it wasn't worth it to try to steal a base. So, whoever you want at the top of the lineup, but he's not running. and now that's kind of back. You have a lot of guys. I mean, Ohtani was 50-50.
You think we could go back to maybe a little bit more of a traditional faster leadoff guy, get on base, that what we had?
I don't know. Getting on base is the far and away number 1 trait. So if they can run, somebody in that lineup will be able to run. That's your tiebreaker, I think, probably. But
well, as a Yankee fan, I'll tell you, the guy who should be the leadoff hitter is Volpe. He just can't be consistent enough to get on base. But he is your natural leadoff hitter, actually, with his skill set.
Doesn't hit for power.
Right.
Fast. Maybe even small, to say that.
Good base runner, too. He's a good base runner. He's smart, but he doesn't get on base enough.
Right. So where does he bat? 6th? Later?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Carlos Carrasco in the Yankee rotation to start the season. He's hanging on. He's hanging on. Injuries.
They tried to trade Marcus Stroman for 2 months, and now he's suddenly a big part of the rotation because of their injuries.
Who's pitching tomorrow?
I believe Rodon.
Okay.
He's not their ace.
That works.
Fried.
Max Fried?
Max Fried is. But Rodon pitches tomorrow, I believe, because of the matchup.
I like Fried. Good. Chris Trapasso. We should see him walk in at any moment here, hopefully. He regularly joins us at 4 on Wednesday. He's decided he's going to stay for the hour with us out at Roswell Park, so looking forward to that. Mike Schopp here, Sal Capaccio as well, in for Bulldog. Thanks for listening. This is WGR.
Call or text WGR at 803-0550 or post on X at WGR5.
The NFL Competition Committee announced a number of proposed rule changes that will go to vote next Tuesday, April 1st at the NFL's owner meetings. Those do include a number of the kickoffs, including a touchback being moved to the 35-yard line instead of the 30, and onside kicks being able to happen at any time if a team is trailing. And those proposals will go to a vote next Tuesday. And also, Miami quarterback Cam Ward having more private workouts. Yesterday it was the Tennessee Titans. Today it is reportedly the Cleveland Browns. The Browns hold the number 2 pick in this year's draft. Over to the Sabres. They are off today. They got the win yesterday over Ottawa, which does mark head coach Lindy Ruff's 600th of his career. Sabres are next in action tomorrow at home against Pittsburgh. And then a very light night tonight in the NHL. Just 4 games. 2 at 7:30. The Devils are in Chicago versus the Blackhawks, and the Islanders host Vancouver. While at 10, the Oilers have the Stars in town, and the Bruins, they're out west against the Anaheim Ducks. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
They have this Panther sound effect that is just the cheesiest, stupidest sounding thing. Big voice guy going, Panther goal scored by Sam Reinhart. Where'd you get that thing?
I trapped it. Been keeping it in my bathroom at the motel, feeding it old pizza.
It's Mike Schopp.
If you're calm, that wondrous big cat will be calm too. But if you're scared, that beautiful death machine will do what God made it to do. Namely, eat you with a smile on its face.
And the Bulldog. On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Welcome back. I'm at Roswell Park today. The Ride for Roswell kicks off in about an hour with their kickoff event. That's how it would kick off, with a kickoff event. I would think that's how you do it. Sal Capaccio is here in for Bulldog with me today.
But do we call it something else because it's on bikes? Like when it's a football game, it's a kickoff. When it's a hockey game, the puck drops. When it's a basketball game, it's a tip-off.
Yeah.
What do you call when it's a bike? You don't ride off. What do we call it? You ride off. I guess you do. You ride off somewhere. I don't know.
There's a gun that goes off. You start a bike race?
Sure, it can be. It doesn't have to be, but
can be. Some sort of a loud noise.
Right.
Usually a gun.
But, yeah, it is, today they're killing at the kickoff.
They are. So that's good enough for me.
Okay, we could do that.
They are. Chris Trapasso is with us here on site at Roswell Park. Chris joins us Wednesdays at 4, leading up to the NFL Draft, which is, 4 more of these, maybe?
Yeah, I think 4.
All right.
Month away. And as Sal and I discussed an hour ago, I think we learned a lot in the last 48 hours about what's going to happen at the top. Agree?
Yeah, just with the Giants signing 2 veterans that are on polar ends of the spectrum when it comes to how aggressive they are, and they're both near the end of their careers, that they probably feel like the Titans are going to pick Cam Ward at 1. That is the odds-on betting favorite at this point. They did nothing in free agency at quarterback. They were and the Giants were in the driver's seat to pick Shedeur Sanders. I think signing Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, it's a low-hanging fruit, but I think they're just not nearly as high as they probably would have liked to be on Shedeur Sanders to pick him at 3. So, yes, you're right. I think we have a lot more clarity. The Browns at 2, though, it's hard to really peg, and I wonder what you guys think, because you really could go in 5 different directions with position and prospect for the Cleveland Browns because they have so many needs.
We talked a little bit earlier about this, which is, sure, they need a quarterback. I think they need a quarterback. It would really depend, I think, how much they love Sanders.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So if they don't love him, do they go Abdul Carter or do they go Travis Hunter? I think it really comes down to that. If they really love Sanders and think he's a franchise-altering quarterback, then they take him because that's what you do with a quarterback.
I would say you don't even have to love him. You just have to like him to make it worth doing.
Because he's a quarterback?
Because he's a quarterback. Yeah. And then also it's the next tier of guys. How much do you like them? Because they picked first in round 2. Mm-hmm. And if you liked Tyler Shuck or Milroe, there's a pretty good chance you can do that.
Are we of the belief, and I guess I'm asking the question as the draft guy, but it proves that the draft is such an uncertain thing, that are we of the belief that Jackson Dart is going to be gone before pick 33?
That'd be my guess.
Okay, so the Browns probably can't say, let's just wait and make Jackson Dart the first pick of round 2. The other thing that makes the Browns really confounding to me is the Deshaun Watson thing couldn't have gone worse. And in a normal situation, I think the GM and the head coach would be strictly on the or very much on the hot seat. We kind of have an idea that it was more of an owner's choice, that was not the GM and the head coach making that decision a few years ago. So for a team that has been so bad for so long, that has a second overall pick, I'm of the belief that their GM, Andrew Berry, and their head coach, Kevin Stefanski, who has been a coach of the year in the NFL
twice,
they actually have a longer leash than most people in that scenario. So maybe they could take the longer view and say, let's wait until 2026 to pick a quarterback.
Maybe. I think there are some people who believe that Stefanski has to get back to winning more, right?
Sure.
Like, and but I agree with you that it feels like the organization isn't quite there yet. That said, if they don't take a quarterback, if they don't take Sanders, it's Kenny Pickett. So you have to wonder, what do they think about that? Now, I said to Mike earlier, I'm not discounting that Kirk Cousins couldn't become available still.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe,
good call.
Maybe the Falcons say, look, we paid out the money. That makes it easier to trade him. You don't have to pay him the extra money for a bonus, right? So I'm of the belief that could still happen. And a lot of times something happens during camp and a team just says, hey, you work something out. Maybe there's an injury. But there's always seems like a guy that shakes free. That said, I think you have to look at the fact that Kenny Pickett right now is their starter.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not again, if that's the idea that Kevin Stefanski has to get back to those winning ways and overachieving after they had a bad season this year, and that maybe he is more on the hot seat than I just mentioned, then yeah, I think potentially, quote-unquote, reaching for Shedeur Sanders certainly is in play. But we've just talked about 5 or 6 different scenarios or philosophies. Are they more short-term? Are they trying to find the guy now? Do they just pick the quarterback because the value's high, or do they wait until next year? That's what makes a team at 2, with the Titans clearly desperately needing a quarterback, and the Giants were a team that clearly needed a quarterback. We just don't really know what the Browns are ultimately going to do with the second pick.
I think that's right. Because it really could
Normally we do know.
Normally we do know you need a quarterback to pick one. Because really it comes down to like what their pain tolerance is.
Yeah.
And what team has endured more than the Browns. Oh, well, if you don't draft Sanders, you're signaling to your team, your players, the world, like we're not going to compete this year. Like, yeah, fine. Like, okay, next. Like, that's been done. And, maybe you have the worst team in the league this year, although they did do the Garrett thing. But
that was bizarre.
That can pay off, too.
I wonder, too, like, if they pass on Shedeur Sanders, and again, this is the Browns at 2, I would assume that everyone in that front office in Berea would be begging and hoping that he falls significantly in the first round to kind of signal like, hey, we didn't like him at 2, and look, we had company, and he's outside of the top 10, and now maybe the Steelers pick him at 20 or whatever the case may be.
Well, could you see that?
I could see him falling out of the top 10. I could, and here's why, and this is not to say that my opinion of Sanders is the end-all, be-all, but I think it's, if you had a bunch of other draft analysts on here, and I'm sure you guys have, he's not a Caleb Williams or a Jaden Daniels type. Then you throw in the circus and his dad and the entitlement and some of that maybe a team, I thought pre-Geno Smith, I thought the Raiders would be all for that, and they would welcome, hey, we want more attention in the AFC West with Mahomes and the Chargers and now the Broncos. But it feels like ownership-wise, and Sal can speak to this better than anyone here about like how owners really tend to think, they would kind of shy away from that, or that would almost be a negative. So
I said the same thing to Mike earlier.
So you factor those two things in, where you could pull 100 draft guys, they'd say, yeah, he's a first-rounder, but not the number 2 overall pick. And then you get Dion, and then you get going on podcasts and complaining here and thinking you should get this and that. And that's why I think him falling out of the top 10 is not just like, a 1 out of 100 chance. I think there's a distinct possibility.
I think you're spot on. I said the same thing to Mike. What I said is any team drafting him knows what his dad comes with him, like in whatever capacity.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be a negative, but it's something you're going to think about, right? It's something you're going to think about, and you got to really love him then to know that okay, whatever comes of that, things we're going to have to be able to tolerate it, so you can overcome it.
What I wonder too is Shedeur Sanders has only had his dad as a coach.
Yes,
going back
correct.
to high school, Jackson State, Colorado. And not that Dion had to make a ton of excuses for him, and he really developed at the small school level and then goes to Colorado and played well. But I wonder if maybe, whether it's the Browns at 2, whether it's, any other team, the Saints, the Jets, if maybe their GM's like, all right, we'll pick him, and the coach is like, I don't know if this guy's going to be ready to be coached particularly hard by someone who is not his dad. Now, I will say Dion hasn't necessarily, spoon-fed everything to him, and he's made comments that, his other son is more of his favorite, and he loves Travis Hunter like his son, things like that. But I wonder how that is factoring into the evaluation process of a guy that's only had his dad as a head coach.
With Chris Trapasso, Mike Schopp, Sal Capaccio here at Roswell Park today, you put Shedeur Sanders in your mock draft today at 9.
Saints, right?
To New Orleans.
Okay.
You mentioned the Jets there, too, at 7. Could see it. Saints could see it. I've liked Seattle. Now, this is 18, and I've never been thinking about Sanders at 18. But Seattle is a quarterback team behind Darnold. That could be Dart, maybe. There's Pittsburgh. I'm assuming Rodgers for Pittsburgh, but then a rookie, Dart, even Sanders to go with him.
How about that tandem? If we get Aaron
Rodgers
Rodgers and Shedeur Sanders in Pittsburgh, that would really test Mike Tomlin's ability to manage a locker room and manage personalities.
I suppose.
That'd be a lot of fun.
I think the one player outside now of Cam Ward that I've seen linked to the same team as much as anyone is Gentry going to the Raiders.
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Genty, sorry.
Gentry,
Genty, sorry, going to the Raiders.
That,
I think that's been the number. That's outside of Ward. If you go down the list, that's the guy that I see linked to him, and you have him. You have him,
yes.
by the way. That's why I'm at 6.
At 6 overall, the running back from Boise State that is, sensational, coming off almost breaking Barry Sanders' record. The speed is there, and that was an offense that you don't necessarily want to fix your run game by just drafting a running back in the first round. You can ask the Steelers about that or the Jaguars about that when they picked Najee Harris and Travis Etienne a few years ago. But Genty is a special talent. The offensive line is better. And I think, like I mentioned, I thought they were going to go more the Shedeur Sanders route. Tom Brady, Chip Kelly, Pete Carroll, changing the identity, splashier. They've been kind of this bottom-of-the-barrel team in this really competitive AFC West. That would make a lot of sense to pick maybe the first true skill position player off the board, Ashton Genty at 6.
Yeah, it's all we've been had this conversation many times, like a running back, but he sounds so good, and the other stuff, the more superficial elements of it, Vegas and Brady and all that. Like I get it. I think I would like it more if they went for McMillan at 6, but I'm not sure he's that good. Like, he's not everybody's favorite prospect, wide receiver from Arizona.
Yeah, so I have him going 12 to the Cowboys. That's another team that, like the Raiders, that you point out needs a big outside wide receiver. In McMillan, what I would say, and what has been my one-sentence comparison, is that he is between T. Higgins and Drake London. That's the kind of player he is. Now, T. Higgins just got a huge contract. Drake London's been, with better quarterback play, a solid number 1. But you're right. Normally, inside the top 3, 5, 7, it's the Jamar Chase, it's the Jalen Waddle types, and that's just not, in terms of separation and explosion, that's not what you get with Ted McMillan.
I'll take it, though. You tell me I'm taking a guy that's having that career.
Okay.
If I'm taking him, I would take him that high. I mean, if you guarantee me right now he would turn into one of those guys, I think it's worth it.
I mean, London did go that high, himself.
He was 8th, I think, yeah.
Right? I mean, it's just, I don't know, given the 40 time and, the testing on where that is, he's a super polarizing prospect.
Yeah, because we're in this age of the NFL where it's all about separation ability and quickness, and we've seen the wide receiver position get smaller and skinnier, and that's totally fine. That the Jordan Addisons and the Smith and Jigbas going in the first round are 180, 175 pounds. Ted McMillan, 6'4", 220, ran in the 4.5s at the Arizona Pro Day. You're right. He's not going to burn down the field. He's not going to be, wow, how did he get so open? He wins with boxing out. He wins in contested catch situations and after the catch.
You move Jaden Higgins, speaking of wide receivers, into the first round to Green Bay at pick 23, so that'd be wide receiver 3, not counting Hunter. McMillan.
I think he had Golden in there,
too.
Mm-hmm.
And then Higgins. He's got some steam lately.
And if Yes, he has. And if you want to look, check his combine workout. He tested through the roof. He is the other big-bodied wide receiver, and maybe he doesn't ultimately go this high, but if you want the X receiver that plays on the perimeter, runs, I think, better routes than Ted McMillan and can get open, check the combine workout. I don't remember all of his specific.
Jaden Higgins. 4.47, 39 vertical, 128 broad. But Jalen Nolan has even better. Jalen Nolan.
Yes, his teammate.
Holy cow, 41.5.
He's a little
vertical,
slot receiver, and he gets open, too.
4.39.
Yeah, absolutely. Both those Iowa State receivers, but I think Higgins being that big, 4.47 compared to McMillan at 4.53, the explosiveness is there, and legitimate ability, unlike McMillan, to get open with his route running nuance and athleticism. The first round to me is this, like every year at the end of the first round, I'm like, man, so many of these workout warriors went in the back half of the first round where we're not really sure. We always say there's 15 to 16 blue chip guys or 10 blue chip guys. Then there's always those surprise names that go in the first round late. I could see Jaden Higgins being that guy.
I'm sure you're familiar with Scott Barrett. Mm-hmm. He was on with me last week.
He's great.
He's really good. Yeah, he's really good. And he this is really condensing it, but like your 40 time is the least predictive trait or stat in your profile. So, Restrepo for Miami ran like 4.8, and then he did say I shouldn't have run maybe because I had a hamstring thing. He sort of made that excuse yesterday. I'd say it wasn't true. So that kind of stays with me. Last year with Barrett, we had the yards per route run problem.
Because when you have two receivers like Neighbors and Thomas,
right,
that's the flaw. And I was talking with Jeremy, I was texting with Jeremy about this over the weekend. That's a good predictor, but when you have two guys like the LSU players, you're going to have those yards per route run numbers be lower. But typically, so maybe that's going to be the case if you look at yards per route run with Higgins and Noel from Iowa State. They're both probably a little bit lower. You'd maybe even boost them a little bit because they're playing with a legitimate NFL player opposite them on that offense.
This was A.D. Mitchell last year,
A.D. Mitchell.
As well as Thomas.
Yep.
But while we're on receivers, I want your thought on Isaiah Bond. It came out, Ryan Talbot and others reported today. The Bills had a private workout, met with him.
Ooh.
Took him to dinner, I guess. I mean, they've met with him in some capacity, more than what you would have just a regular visit.
Sure.
Okay, so for whatever reason, the Bills are connected to Isaiah Bond a little bit more today and over the last 24 to 48 hours. Give us your thought.
Yeah, that is really fascinating because he is – I think Josh Palmer fits this role to a certain degree. But Isaiah Bond being 4.39 that's certainly what the Bills – Brandon Beane spoke to this. Sean McDermott spoke to this, like that the Bills need more downfield vertical ability. So at 4.39, Isaiah Bond has that. Then you watch him on film, and we're talking about separation ability. McMillan doesn't really have it. Higgins better. Isaiah Bond is a route salesman. He knows how to sell a dig route that turns into an outbreaking route. He runs post corners. There's the kind of, I guess in draft circles, famous play where he scores a touchdown this year, or I guess this past season at Texas, near the goal line, stems to the inside, gets his face mask turned to the side, and readjusts his face mask as he's running toward the back pylon, completely leaves the defensive back in the dust, catches the touchdown. He's a legitimate separator too. So that's not just the Bills are meeting with some 5th or 6th rounder. He's someone that certainly can get open and has the vertical speed to be someone that the Bills could ultimately pick maybe day 2 or with one of those 4th round picks.
Also, I learned today you're a Jack Besh guy.
Adore Jack Besh.
So this is the famous thing on him is the 21 LSU team.
Yes. I just talked about that today on a different podcast.
All right, with all the names on it. But he led those names in catches?
Yes. Neighbors was on that team.
Thomas
was on that team. They didn't have Jaden Daniels as their quarterback yet. But he led that LSU team as a freshman with 43 catches, which is kind of speaks to how low volume that LSU wide receiver group or passing offense was. But doing that as a freshman, I am a big believer. I know we're in this age where, hey, everyone's older now. All these prospects are 24. No one cares. For me, and if I'm Brandon Beane or I'm trying to run a draft room, I'm looking for those guys that showed promise at 18, 19 years old who are not only dominating in their age 23 or 24 season. And Besh did that at LSU. did not have good quarterback play at TCU, but still went over 1,000 yards last season. Yards after the catch is stupendous. And I think we witnessed this firsthand watching Bills-Rams. The Puka Nacua type acrobatic catches near the sideline with a body on him. How did he reel that in? Jack Besh did that repeatedly last season because a lot of the passes that were thrown his way were not very accurate.
And if I can, just so the listeners are familiar, and the viewers, by the way, hi everybody. Jack Besh is the brother of, is it? I want to say Tiger. Thank you, Tiger. It's Martin is his name. Tiger's his nickname.
Mm-hmm.
Martin Tiger Besh, who was killed in the New Orleans terror attack. Actually, a little bit before the Senior Bowl. I think it was a Senior Bowl. And then Jack Besh he had the winning touchdown
in the Senior Bowl.
And he had the emotional interview, but he is the brother of Tiger Besh, who was killed in New Orleans.
21 LSU. Keyshawn Boutte was a pretty good draft pick.
Trey Palmer was on that team,
and
too.
Trey Palmer. Who is this quarterback? Max Johnson.
Max Johnson. I think he's transferred a bunch of times and didn't ultimately, obviously, do it.
He's not in the league, huh?
He's not in the league. I don't think so. I don't think that was Garrett Nussmeier yet.
So here's Bulldog going away on the occasion of the Ride for Roswell kickoff event. He's the captain of the WGR Ride for Roswell team. And on the occasion, you know what I'm going to say? Emanwari.
Oh, yeah. So I have the Bills trading up for Nick Emanwari.
And he's not here to revel in it.
Does he love it or hate it?
He loves the player.
He loves the player.
He would love this.
Okay.
I think.
So after I have to do the caveat where whenever I'm talking about a mock draft that I do one per week at CBS all season. So try and now that we're a month away, you try to get as close as you can to actually predicting what's going to ultimately happen. But that wouldn't be the biggest need. Of course, defensive tackle, corner, edge, we all understand that. But Emanwari, with that workout and the production that he had on the football, pass breakups, interceptions, relative to how frequently he was covered, he would be someone where I could see Brandon Beane being like, he was the last first rounder that we had on the board. We have 10 picks. We don't have 10 spots on the roster, even though we have more needs on defense. We're like, similar to what he said and how he supposedly felt about Dalton Kincaid, that they're like, hey, let's just trade a few of these mid-rounders to get someone that could ultimately be a true dynamic playmaker at a very important position in Sean McDermott's defense.
I like that point. I've said that I just don't see them taking a safety because they like what they have in Cole Bishop. But more than anything, it's the biggest position on the field that this regime has always, there is no exception, has always operated that they like guys who know the system.
Yep.
And you can go back to signing Dean Marlowe. You go back
right? Signed him back, right?
All the time. I mean, right? They traded for him, I think it was. I don't even know if they did or not, whatever. But it was right around then. But it's not just him. It's guys they brought in just over the last several years. Kurt Coleman came back, I think, or came for Sean McDermott, right? This is a position they've always operated where they want guys who've been in their system or know their system. Mike Edwards didn't make the team last year. He did, but then he was hurt and wound up getting released. So I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree that if they have that philosophy about the draft and say, we'll just deal with it, but even if that happens, I don't know if he's playing in year one that much, to be honest with you.
No, that's a great point. I guess also with this, beyond trying something different and thinking of what I just mentioned about maybe him being the last first-round, quote-unquote, prospect that the Bills could have on their board, it was this philosophy, and I think I said this last week, that I have a thought, and maybe, Sal, you could speak to this if you know, that the Bills want to get more explosive all over the field, that they have had those Dean Marlowe's that are on, the bottom part of the roster, but even the Jordan Poyers and the Micah Hydes, who are not, even Trey White was not a 4-3 guy with a 40-inch vertical that could fit in the scheme and be in the right position often. I think with the Michael Hoyt signing, Joey Bosa, even Larry Ogunjobi, I think they realize we kind of need some more dudes that then we can plug into this great scheme.
That's why they signed Derek Forrest.
And Derek Forrest,
I think Derek Forrest fits in that mold. What
4-4-5.
you're talking about.
Yes.
You watch his highlights, he's lighting somebody up.
Yes.
Right? Or he's getting beat deep, maybe.
Yeah. But that he is someone that ran in the mid-4-4s. He had a big vertical where I feel like they've been able, and they know, to what Sal was saying, they understand we can create turnovers with lesser players in this scheme. It's complex. We trust Bobby Babich is dealing with the linebackers and the safeties. Let's get a 4-3-9 guy with a 40-inch vertical and see where his ceiling ultimately could be, and that would be Emanwari. for sure.
Chris Trapasso, our weekly guest here on WGR, going to stick around for the rest of the hour. We're live at Roswell Park, the Ride for Roswell kickoff event, rideforroswell.org. We'll have a couple of guests from Roswell Park on later in the show. Also, you can ride in the event, of course, but also donate if you're not a rider, or just volunteer at the event, which is at the end of June. More with Chris, and your calls are welcome, too, at 803-0550. Mike Schopp, Sal Capaccio from Roswell Park. This is WGR.
The NFL Competition Committee announced a number of proposed rule changes today that will be up for vote next Tuesday, April 1st at the NFL owners' meetings. Those do include a number on the kickoffs, including the touchback being moved to the 35-yard line instead of the 30, and onside kicks happening at any time if a team is trailing. And those are proposals, among others, are going to be voted next Tuesday. We also had some quarterback news today. Miami Hurricanes QB Cam Ward reportedly having another private workout, this time with the Cleveland Browns. They hold the second overall pick in this year's draft. Yesterday it was reported the Tennessee Titans, who hold the number one overall pick. And on the Titans, they did sign a quarterback today, at being Tim Boyle.